We are happy to be back with you. Want to take a moment and say thank you to those of you who have taken the time to write a review. This is really, truly one of the easiest ways for you guys to support us, is for you guys to just take a moment, give us a 5-star review. Brad says you can just do emojis. I think you should at least write a sentence, but we want to hear from you. It really does help other people to find us. It helps other people to know that we're legitimate, that other guests that are looking for us. So just please go ahead and take the time to write a review. This one is actually off of Spotify. This is Julie. She said, I just started listening to your podcast starting at episode 80. My husband is not living at home, is still in his affair. During this trial, God has done amazing things in my healing. I serve an awesome God. I trust in his promise to restore our marriage for his glory. He has shown me this since the beginning. When Brad spoke of where are the men, I just had to share my ongoing prayer. Jesus, send the bold Christian men to minister to my husband. Thank you both for your honesty. Thank you for sharing that. Give us an update. We would love to hear from you. For those of you guys who leave reviews and tell us a little bit of your story, we would love if you share even more. Okay.
Absolutely.
So in this new season, we have been discussing, really kind of going into a little bit more detail of an event that we did, and it was encompassing the KISS acronym. K was for kindness, and we had already addressed kindness, so we didn't do a full episode on that one. You can go back and listen to our Fruit of the Spirit, a whole little series that we did. But we did I, and we really dove into intimacy and emotional intimacy. We've done S, which is for sacredness, and that was last week. So if you haven't listened to those, go listen.
Excuse me.
This week, we're on the last S in the KISS acronym. Keep it simple.
Stupid.
No. Sometimes Brad looks at me and wants me to know what his next thought is.
You do.
I don't. And now I'm looking at him going, this is I will give you segues, that I just am like, land the plane. And then you will just not do it.
I know.
So it's keep it simple, sweetie. Yeah. Don't call your spouse stupid. We've already mentioned this before. Please don't do that. That's not going to get you to where you ultimately want to go. So we're on S. S is for sacrifice.
Yes.
This one's all back on you, baby.
Yeah, a side note real quick, it's kind of leads into sacrifice, but I was just thinking this morning, as I usually just drink black coffee, like just black, like whatever you think about that, whatever. But
what would people think about it?
Some people say that people that drink black coffee are psychos.
What? Yeah. Who says that?
I've heard that before.
No.
I mean,
they're healthier.
Yeah, I agree. I think black coffee is great, but every now and then I want just something in it. Just
you want a little sweet. Random,
right? And so this morning I had your homemade creamer that you make for your coffee. And how it goes into sacrifices, I think you've become more crunchy in recent years than you ever have been before.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And that makes me crunchy.
Yeah.
And so now,
I'm all like, microplastics,
even our daughter's home right now, and she walked into our pantry, and she was like, was there a sale on chips?
Or his mom obsessed with some new thing.
Yeah. Because you've been buying the kids' chips with avocado oil now, and there's only 2 ingredients, like potatoes and avocado oil, So anyway, side note, and that is sacrificing, I guess. That's part of it, right? We're sacrificing all
convenience. Sacrificing money. Because all the healthy food costs more money.
Yeah. Oh gosh, even eggs.
I mean, I like the taste of the store-bought creamer better.
Yeah, but it has all the junk in it.
So my sacrifice is taste as well. Although you liked my homemade creamer this time.
I know. I did. I'm just saying that.
My sacrifice is letting you have my homemade creamer.
Well, I had it a couple times because I had to refill this cup that I'm drinking right now.
Yeah, I know. Because I was like, Dang, my homemade creamer done gone fast.
And I spilled some on the floor.
Oh, I'll call you out right now. You spilled some in the cupboard. Next thing I know, I look over and you are licking the cupboard. Or not the cupboard, sorry. What do you, no, I can't even think of the name. What's it called? The counter.
The counter?
Yes.
The cupboard. Just the picture. I had a picture in my head, like everyone listening, like, wow, this dude just licked the cupboard.
Okay, is the cupboard or the counter, like, which one's, I mean, I feel like either way, it's weird.
No, that, like, you spent time making that, right?
So then why didn't you lick it up off the floor?
Because the floor is different. Like, it was right there next to my coffee mug on the cover, and on the cupboard. Now I'm saying it. On the counter. It was right there on the counter next to my coffee mug. So instead of wiping it up, and it was a good, like, bit of it.
Me and our youngest son were in there. We just are like, what is currently happening?
It was good. Thought I'm going to waste that.
Sacrifice.
Exactly. It's like right now.
Bring it back around.
Eggs are super expensive. You're going to leave a little chunk of egg in the pan? No.
No.
Yeah. You're going to scrape the pan, get all the egg.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So S is for sacrifice.
For sacrifice, yes.
Okay. It's on you. Go ahead.
Like I have a speech prepared.
Yeah.
This is a conversational podcast.
Is it?
Gosh.
No, I loved hearing you talk about this. I think you have a unique perspective, even with what you do for your career, that it helps you to correlate, I think, sacrifice, just in general with marriage. And I thought that was really beautifully demonstrated, because I think, sacrifice, I don't know. I guess we should just start off with what you define sacrifice as.
For me?
Yeah.
I guess it would be, it seems so simple. I guess it's just like self-denial.
Self-denial. Okay.
Yeah. It goes deeper than that, but I think that's just the simple.
Yeah. It is a simple way to say it, because I'm thinking like you're laying down something that you would rather place above someone else, like a laying down of oneself, and it can be done in really simple ways or really complicated ways.
And your explanations for things are usually a little bit more eloquent than mine.
Detailed, I would say, not eloquent.
Okay.
Because most of the time women just have more of an abundance of words, but the reality is it's the simple definitions that stick with you more than the really detailed explanations.
Yeah. It's just self-denial. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So when you sacrifice for me, is it always like self-denial? Wow.
I think
he's like, I don't want to. I will say this really quick.
What?
Brad and I have had this conversation, I think even on here before, because sacrifice is so huge in a marriage, and everyone has to do that in order for it to go to where you really want to go, right?
Yes.
But if I know you are self-denial, right? Like if I know that you're in a mood, if I can hear in your head the narrative that's like, I have to do this, but I don't want to, and I can hear it, okay, then it makes me so mad because I can hear you in your head self-talking yourself like, nope, I can't. It's not time to sit down and rest. My wife is doing something, so I need to get up and do something. And so I'm going to do it. But I can hear it. I'm just like, because tell me if you think this is true. I think for some people, self-sacrifice is within their nature. And so it kind of becomes like where you just like start doing that stuff naturally more. And then I think that is true.
No.
Why?
You think that self-sacrifice comes natural?
That's
what you just said.
That naturally there are certain people that are more inclined to placing other people above themselves.
You just changed your whole...
I'm not. That is self-sacrifice.
You said you think it comes naturally at first. Now it's like certain people, it comes naturally.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't you think there's certain people that comes more naturally? And I think for moms, like when you have a child, this starts to become like a part of your, like literally your nature.
Yeah.
Because it's almost forced upon you in a lot of ways. Like as you go through pregnancy, as you like that self-sacrifice. I mean, I think that's why we understand the heart of God so much greater when you do become a parent, because the element of sacrifice as a dad too, it becomes much more like, this is what I do versus this is what I think I ought to do. And you have to really like process it out.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think it does come natural to some people. I think it becomes simpler to do. Not necessarily easier, but simpler to do as you grow. Especially like for us as like, or for me as I grow in my walk with Christ, like I think it becomes a lot more simpler to lay down, right? Versus wanting to do something for myself all the time. And don't get us wrong, like we still do things for ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, some things are, I guess you could say like some things are selfish that we do for ourselves, but it's not with the intent of putting others below you, you know, because I think some people can get crazy about, you know.
Well, right. Then you start getting into almost like selflessness or sacrifice, as it can bleed into almost a source of pride.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so it's like any good thing we do can be really a point of contention when it comes to our, like what our personal intent is behind it.
But so when my thing with sacrifice, and I think the way to really like drive it home, because to me it's the basis for a marriage. Like it's, let me backtrack before someone on here is like, no, that's not it. You're really Jesus should be your foundation.
Is your foundation, yeah.
Right. But that also should be your foundation individually, you know, like that is your foundation. Yes. But the foundation in a marriage and what we're talking about, it's sacrifice. Like everything else builds on that. Kindness builds on it. Intimacy, all the different intimacies that we talked about, sacredness, like all those things build on sacrifice. If you don't have sacrifice, you know, do you really have the others, you know, or do you really have the others to the fullest? It's kind of like the, you know, in the Bible, when it talks about love, do everything in love, and without love, like you could be, you know, doing all these things, but without love, it's nothing, you know? And I feel it's the same way in a marriage. You could be doing these things, but without sacrifice, it's really empty.
Yeah, because if you're doing it with selfishness, with a selfish intent, do you have true emotional intimacy? Do you have intimacy? If you're doing selfishness when it comes to sacredness, if it's only thinking about yourself, do you really have sacredness? It's like, no, it should always be about. Yeah,
absolutely. And so there was a few years ago, and I think I've talked about this on our podcast before.
A little bit.
But a few years ago, there was that shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The you know, dude walked into the school, you know.
Horrific.
Yeah, tragedy, right? Walked into school and started shooting everything. And then he went into a classroom, and that classroom led to another classroom, right? That's kind of the layout of the situation. There was kids and teachers in that class, in those two classrooms. But anyway, one of my classmates through selection, through the teams I'm on, he was the one guy that's responded from not the one guy, but he's the TL that responded for this. And when he got there was tons of police officers. You know, if anyone's ever seen like a scene like that, there's cops all over the place, like law enforcement, not just cops, they're just everywhere. So he showed up, and long story short, he ends up like in the area where everything's going down. And if you have seen like the videos, you'll see, you know, like a long hallway, kind of like an eye shaped, like one, you know, there's, you know, the way it looks like an eye, right? And he's at one of the ends, and he said he walked in, and everyone's just kind of standing around. And so he starts like, who's in charge, and goes through that whole thing, and no one's fessing up. So he's like, well, fine, he didn't say this, but he's like, I'm in charge, basically. Like, he started directing the other dudes that showed up with him. Like, hey, I need this, get this, let's do this. And as he's doing all this, coming up with this plan, one of the police officers is like, well, you can't do that because there's kids inside the classroom. So before that statement was made, the verbiage that was used made it sound like there was no one else inside the classroom but the shooter, right? That he locked himself in there. And so in our world, when that happens, it's like, yeah, I mean, we'll do all these other things. Like, we don't need to
wait
go
it
in
out.
yet. Yeah. And so as soon as he heard that, all of a sudden everything, stopped. And speaking to him on this, it's pretty crazy when I hear the story coming directly from him. But, they didn't think, right? It was like, there's kids in there, there's a gunman in there. So then he looked at a couple other guys and he's like,
we're going in.
Yeah, he didn't even have to say it. Like, he just looked at him and everyone knew that our team knew what was about to happen, right? And so they ran down the hallway, faced a door that they had to breach, and the door was like, riddled with bullet holes, and no hesitation. Yeah. Like, got to open the door. There's people in there that are dying. There's, like, what's going on? Why are people standing around? And so, they open the door, go in there, and after like maybe half a second, the gunman, he comes out of a closet and it's over, right? That gunman did shoot a lot of rounds towards our guys, and I've told my buddy, I'm like, man, God was 100% there that day, because, not even half a second, less than half a second, that dude waits a little bit.
Yeah. And
he kills my teammate, the guy I'm talking about. Like, he would have killed him. So it's just like this God timing in this tragic situation was happening. So anyway, when this happened and I was getting bits and pieces, I was out of country when this went down. And so we were getting like bits and pieces, from different guys on the team. And then when I found out who it was, I got a hold of him and, just talked to him real quick. And one thing that made me like so angry as the story kept coming out was all the police officers there, like all of them. They just literally, you can watch the videos, they're just standing around. Like, I mean, if they, it wouldn't surprise me if they had coffee in their hand. That's kind of like the attitude that was going on. That's why when my buddy showed up, it was like, oh, what do we got? Oh, that's it? Okay. And then it was like, all right, let's figure this out. Because he said like the body language in there there was no urgency, right? So that really, really made me mad. And I remember that I came to you and I was like fired up. And I'd tell anyone that was there that day, I would tell them to their face what I'm about to say, right? And I was very, very fired up. And I'm like, any police officer that was in that hallway should be fired. But really what they should do is go turn in their badge, their gun, and quit. Go find another job. Like, I would tell that, like, we talk it out a little bit more than what I'm saying now. If I was on the other side talking to one of these police officers, I'd like to know a little bit more, but that really bothered me because, when you sign up for this career, right? This is a career. This isn't like, you're not just signing up like, oh, let me see how this works out, right? This is something that you're signing up for. And you have to be willing to give the ultimate sacrifice. So day in and day out, there's sacrifices being made. There has to be, right? But the ultimate sacrifice is called, like, you have to do that. Like, it's not an option not to.
Yeah, right? Inherently, when there is danger, you are signing to go towards it, not away, which is against our human nature.
Absolutely. But then if that is something that you have a problem with, you don't get in that line of work.
Right.
Period. Right? Because
I would not do well.
Yeah, you sign up to do, it's the adage of there's these t-shirts that have this on there, and we kind of say it on the team, but kind of laughing about it on the team. But it's like everyone wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster things. Right. And what that really entails is like, you watch the movies, you see all these pictures of these dudes like all tacked out and, walking through mountains and doing like room clearing and all this stuff. And it's like, man, I want to do that. Like, that's cool. Right. I want to be a gangster. Right. Like, that's cool. Then when it comes time to cash the check, they don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Because then it becomes this real thing that you might not walk away from, right? It becomes very real. And so I sat there and I'm like mad about these cops, like very mad. And they're a bunch of cowards. They should have never put that badge on. These are quote unquote, hey, you're wearing a gun, man. Like you're quote unquote a professional gunfighter. Like, these are things that are popping in my head. Like, you decided to do this. No one forced you to do this. Like, then innocents are dying and you're fine with it because you're just sitting there. You're like, yeah, there's no other, like, I hope you're listening to this and you're getting mad like I did, because there's no other way to explain that. Like, you're okay with this, right? Because you were fine sitting there, like you're a coward, right? Like, what happened? And then you calmed me down as usual. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you calmed me down and you put in another perspective for me. I still have this feeling of like, okay, I buy what you're saying. I really do. At the same time, I'm like, no, there's something, but either way, you did change my perspective a little bit. And you said, no, they weren't willing to do it, right? They weren't willing to die. This is what the story is about, right? Yes, the underlining story is about saving people, right? But really, in those situations, the story is, are you willing to die right now?
And I think you can sign up and think you are.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I think that's what I think that's what correlates so much into like marriage. Like, when we sign up, we, it's like, you have a lot of ideas of what that's going to look like. When you're in a situation, man, it plays out differently.
Yeah. So it's this weight of what, any enforcement branch, anything like that carries, or you should carry with you, and you should be comfortable carrying it, is when it's asked, are you willing to die? Like, whether that looks like you've saved something and you died, or whatever it looks like, are you willing to die? Like, is that like that should be a question that's a question you have to ask yourself daily. Are you willing to die? Like, when I leave, and go for my normal day, like, is there a point where, because it's happened, how many times has it happened where I just leave for a normal day, then next thing you know, you're like, why, let's keep the school example. Like, you're at the high school now. Like, what's going on? Like, there's things that evolve rapidly and keep going. And it's like, okay, well, the question is, are you willing to die? Like, that is really what it comes down to. And so, yes, you did change my perspective on the police officers were unwilling to act, but then why was the team willing to act? Like, what's the difference, right? Besides training, like, I get that. Like, I get the overarching, like, the big factors. Like, what are these big factor differences? Well, we go through a selection course. We train these guys up. We, vet. Like, we do all these things, right, to, like, pull these guys in to become a team, and they have a lot of experience together, all that. Like, I get that part of it. But really, when it comes down to, like, the individual, what's the difference between the willingness to sacrifice and the unwillingness to sacrifice? And this is the ultimate sacrifice, right? So what is the difference? And really thinking about it, because I'm like, okay, let's take it back, and yes, let's correlate this with marriage. This is where I'm going with this, is every one of those police officers, every one of those team guys, myself included, we get ready to graduate our academy, like our basic academy, and you go up on stage and you take an oath. You take an oath, and that oath, it might sound different in different environments, you know, like different agencies might word it a little bit different, all these things. But really what that oath is boiling down to is, I will sacrifice for you. And the you is the public, the you is the person standing across, like whatever it is, but that is what it boils down to. It says all these fancy words, you know, like foreign enemies, foreign and domestic, and you know, all these things over and over again, but really boil it all down. I will sacrifice for you. Like that is what it boils down to. And every one of those people that stand up there and do this, right? Raise your right hand, like take this oath, like they are they're not lying.
Yeah.
They're not, I mean, I would, yeah, they're not lying. There's no way. Like they believe this. They want this. They know, like, you know, I could do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it different, whatever it is, right? But they're not lying. They fully believe this. Marriage, right? You stand up on a stage at an altar and you take your vows. And the vows sound, you know, again, you could write your own vows, you know, all those things, but traditional, you know, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, all those things till death do us part. Really, again, think about even the vows you wrote. If you wrote your own vows and traditional vows, what does it boil down to? I will sacrifice for you. Like that is, that's it, right? Like kind of boil, it's kind of like my definition for success. Vows. Well, it's my definition for sacrifice, right? It's like self-denial. It's very simple, right? All those fancy words boil down to I will sacrifice for you.
Yeah.
That's it.
I will do what it takes. I will stand by you.
Yeah. I'm going to sacrifice for you, period. And you believe that and you want that. It's more than just believe. Like you know it.
Yeah.
Right. You're like in you, like, yes, I will do this. This is my marriage. Like, and so the cops, the husbands, the wives, like you said these things. And then 10 years down the road,
better and worse does come.
Yeah. Then 10 years down the road, why did the unwillingness or why did the willingness go away? Like, why did all that zeal for that, you know, first stepping off in our marriage? Why did all that zeal for first stepping off as a first responder, as, you know, to protect and serve, whatever it is, like, where did it go? Right? Where, like, why were you so dead set on doing it at the beginning? And now you're like, I don't know if I want to do this, you know? And it's like, that's what I wanted to dive into to really learn is that piece of like, okay, well, you know, what's the deal? And I think a lot of it is complacency, right? Like you become comfortable in your marriage, which is a good thing, but you also get stuck in your ways. You also start thinking of yourself more than others. Like, you know, all those.
Stop growing, stop pursuing.
Yeah, like all those things. And so I just was, you know, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think ultimately it's like correlating it all between that willingness and unwillingness. And you're thinking about, you know, you're in situations that you never anticipate, you know, like really, truly, like until you're in them. Cause like, it doesn't sound bad to say like, I'm willing to sacrifice everything when you're making your, you know, your vows in a marriage or as a first responder. Like you can sit there and go like, yeah, of course. Like, of course that's what I'm willing to do. But I mean, definitely through our own situations, but even seeing you in very intense situations, the responses that I think are going to be there are not. Do you know what I mean? And it, like in good ways, in a lot of ways. Like I know I mentioned to you just recently, like we've just had, you know, news in our life that just kind of it totally shakes your world, right? And in that, you're just like, I always see you in like intense situations actually get calmer. And I've talked about this before, or you get steadier. Where I typically, I would say am probably like I run in that realm, right? Like I'm usually steady and fine. Like I'm not a highly up and down emotional person. But when it's a big stressors, man, I feel that intensely. Like I feel the emotion intensely. And so I just think it's, and then in the better and in the worse, I think both of us have reacted differently in those situations too. And you physically, when you're doing like first responder stuff, it's the same kind of thing. Like your response, I don't know, I could never do that. Like even when we were in an intense situation where a guy had a knife out on us, and I remember so specifically, first of all, my response, not what I thought I was going to do. But for some reason, I decided that if you needed backup, I would be there for you.
Yeah, you're going to bring it.
Totally incapable, by the way. Like, here's my strong husband. I'm just like, don't worry, I'm here. Like, just in case, you know? Like, I didn't feel, obviously, like I could, even though I think we had just 2 kids at that time. Yeah. Even though I had the 2 kids with me, my instinct was not to get in the vehicle and drive away from you, even though afterwards you told me, like, next time you get in the vehicle and you drive away. That was like, no, like, even though afterwards going through the situation, I was sitting there going like, yeah, clearly I was not helping. Yeah. Like I'm only a hindrance in this situation. Like I realize that logically. Yeah. You know, because like you will lay down your life for your family. Like you would.
And I think that like you talk to any husband, and this is where I really like sacrifice is so intricate and complex. It really is because, you know, in what Luke 9:23-24, Jesus is talking to this crowd and his disciples, and he's like, if you want to follow me, you need to pick up your cross and deny yourself daily, right? Or die to self daily, depending on your version. And I think it says it in Matthew too. Like it you know, that the story's, you know, intertwined with this one verse for sure. And I mean, tons of verses are, but I mean, this one is kind of repeated. And you look at that and you're like, yeah, you know, pick up my cross, okay, you know, and follow him. And then, and I've talked about this before, I know. So if you're binging us, you probably heard me say this, but that scripture in and of itself is so powerful to me because the people he was talking to, the cross was death, like a physical death that, you know, you're not coming back from.
The most gruesome of deaths. Yeah.
Like a torturous death, right? That was the cross. The other part of it, and so they're looking at that and they're like, okay, if I want to follow Jesus, I know I need to die. Like I'm going to have to pick up this cross and take it to my death, physical death. Like that's how I read that first part. Like it is this physical death of what could happen, right? Then the second part is, and you have to deny yourself or die to self daily. Well, clearly we can't die physically daily.
Yeah.
You know, so that part to me is the hardest, right? So now let me back up. If I asked, you know, I would say if I asked 10 out of 10 husbands would say they would 100% lay their life down for their family, whether they have kids or not, just your wife, whatever it is, they would 100% go out in this blaze of glory, you know, lay your life down, the ultimate sacrifice. I really believe that. And, you know, I've never done that poll, but that I would be surprised if your husband and you want to tell us that you would not do that, you can send us a message. I would be shocked,
yeah,
you know, because that's just kind of like, yes, of course I would do that. You know, like, yeah, if there's a chance, you know, let's even take it to like, not this like extreme, like, you know, guy with a knife or, you know, someone robbing you with a gun or whatever like that. Let's take it to like cancer, right? Like I would like, if it was a choice, I'd want the cancer. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, like I don't want my kid to suffer. Like I want the cancer, you know? And so like I feel, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel that men especially would be like, yeah, no, I will 100% take this on, you know? And I'm not negating women. I'm just saying like, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
You know, that would be the answer. So to me, that's the easy like thing, right? It's like, okay, if I'm a Christ follower and I lay down my life for my family, then, you know, next moment I open my eyes, I'm standing with Jesus, you know, like that's going to be eternity, right? Like that is my eternity. So then it's like, okay, well, you know, this is the easy part, right? Essentially, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not like, even the stuff, you know, I do like for a living. It's not like I'm seeking to try to die at all.
No.
Like that's not it at all. I just know that if I do, like
your future's secure.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that that's the easy part. It's the day in, day out sacrifice, right? And
Absolutely.
That's the hard grind. That's the die to self daily, whether that's, you know, getting up earlier so you could spend more time with God, like, you know, going to the gym, like these little things, right? That kill your flesh. Right. And I think it sounds funny when I say that right now, because I'm talking about like going to the gym and working out, being healthy. Like, you know, a lot of people do that for vanity, right? Like, oh, I want to look a certain way. I want to, you know, I want people to notice me or whatever it is, whatever their goal is. But essentially, like, I want to take care of my body because this is what God gave me. Like, I want to be a good steward of my body. Yeah. And I know that I can be stronger, faster, you know, all those things. Like, I want to do that. I want to prolong as long as I have on earth, you know, so I could keep doing what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, I want to look good for you.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
You know, but I don't look at working out as selfish, because if you try to look at it selfishly, it's not going to last, because you're going to go to the gym and you're going to be tired. You're going to be sore. You're going to be, you know, maybe you're feeling a little sick. Maybe.
Yeah. No matter what, we get older.
Yeah. But also like your flesh will win.
100%.
Right. And so if you don't practice sacrificing even on that level, or even on the level of, I'm not going to have, you know, I'm not going to eat those cookies. I'm not going to have this snack. Like all these little things, I'm not going to sleep in. I'm not, you know, or maybe you're not sleeping in. Maybe you can get up at 6 a.m. and get to work on time and everything's fine. But you're like, well, yeah, but then by the time I get home, I want to do devos, but I don't really want to do devos because now I'm tired. Kids are here. I should be playing with them because that's good. I should be doing those things. I need to help my wife. So now I don't have time for devos. Next thing I know, it's time for bed. You know, all these things, right? So maybe you get up an hour early, an hour and a half early, so you can sit there and do your devos. So you can pray. So you can do those things, because so the willingness, to me, it's twofold, right? So it comes from training. Like I need to, so, you know, we have this thing I've said, I don't know if I came up with it or not. Maybe I did come up with it. I don't know.
Who knows?
But who knows when
Google it.
This is like, I've said this for years, but, training builds confidence, and confidence overcomes fear. And I think that if we correlate that to like the story I said at the beginning, and then even in marriage, there's a certain point where your selfishness, your flesh starts taking over. You start fearing things, right? You start fearing like those police officers in that hallway, you know, they feared death. Like that's what it came down to, right?
Of course.
Like that's the, you know, you can psychoanalyze whoever was in that hallway, and you could like go deeper with that. But really what it comes down to is they feared death.
Yeah.
They did. Because there were so many, you know, guys and in our world that, you know, we talk to and all these, you know, of course you're looking at it from hindsight, right? But then our guys acted the way they did. But the mentality, you know, talking to our guys when they did that was like, I mean, literally was like, I was going to kick that door open and one of us was going to die, but we were going to save those kids. Like that was the mentality. It wasn't, I'm going to kick the door open for, you know, God intervenes, all these rounds don't hit flesh, you know, they skip off
not even
things.
I'm going to hit the door down and be the hero. That's not what it is.
No, it was, you know,
it was sacrifice.
Going to kick this door in and we're going to take him. We're going to end the situation, but we're not coming home. Like that was the mentality. It wasn't like, okay, great. You know, all this stuff, like it's going to be great. You know, we're going to come out of this unscratched, like no big deal. No, that's that was the willingness. And so that fear that takes over a lot of times, it can be overcome if you build confidence, and confidence comes from training. Right. And so like, if I had to put like a percentage on it, our guys are training more than they're operating, right? They're, you know, maybe 80-20 or 85-15, whatever it is, but they have to do that. And it's not because they're fearing, it's because they're honing and they're building more confidence in the craft to be able to handle whatever comes at them at any moment, right? Even if we get a mission that comes down, we've been training, we get that mission. And if we have time, like if it's a set time and date, right? If we have time before we step off, then we rehearse and we train that specific thing until we have to like act, right? So all the time we're training, we're building this confidence. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. If this happens, this is how we act. Like, it's just like over drills, over. You actually do get tired of doing it. Yeah. Like you 100% get tired of shooting. You 100% get tired of running through the house. Like you 100% get tired of it, but you know you have to do it because there has to be no question when it comes down to willingness. No one on that team can hesitate half a second. No one can. They have to act, because if he doesn't act, then that means I could get killed. Right. And if I don't act, that means we're all together in this. We have to do this. And it's not by fear. It's not by blind momentum. It's not anything like that. It's like, no, we've trained. We've built this confidence. We know we can do these things, and we're going to act. And in that, we're also like, this might be the last time I step and do this. This might be my moment, right? Like I have a tattoo. I know some people are, you know, a little nervous about tattoos. Like, like, I don't know if you should have them. I don't know if you shouldn't. And that's a personal belief for some people, whatever. But I have a tattoo on my ribs and it says, "If today be the day." And I got it years ago, I think years ago. And really it came from, and I wasn't even prepared to talk about this really, but it came from this, a warrior poem, right? And it was a great warrior poem. And it's like, if today be the day that you don't come home, right? You know, this day be the day you do this ultimate sacrifice, like these things, like that's what it is. And so for me, it has like this huge double meaning, of course, because it's like, well, you know, what if today's the day that God calls me to do something, right? What if, you know, like all these things that when I see that, it has this like huge meaning, but also means like I need to be ready, you know, physically I need to be ready, spiritually I need to be ready for all these things. I need to be ready to sacrifice. And so in a marriage, like how do you train to sacrifice? How do you build yourself up so sacrificing becomes simpler? Not easier, but just simpler. How do you push forward? How do you know? Because you can't just be like, okay, babe, I want you to drill me on like taking the trash out when I'm tired. You know, I don't know.
That ain't gonna work out for you.
Yeah, you know, like I don't know how that looks, but I already gave examples, right? Like get up. Here's my thing. Like I used to beat around the bush around this. Like, you know, I would talk to people and I'd be like, man, you need to start reading your Bible. Like you need to spend time with God. And then I would always say, it could be in the morning or when you get home. Like I would always say, you can in the day, you know, it's just kind of like this, almost like the, you know, not coddling, but kind of like, hey man, like, you know, you could do it anytime. No big deal. You know, like you want to sleep in, it's cool. Just do it before you go to bed. But now the more that I work with guys, the more I work with couples and all those things, and the more I talk to men, I'm like, absolutely not. Get up in the morning. Like get up and get your devos. Like have the coffee ready for when you get up, whatever it is, but get up and do these things, right? Like don't wait till the end of the day. If you have the end of the day, yeah, I of course I have like prayer time at the end of the day, right? Like that's just kind of my routine, but I'm going to get up early. I'm going to get in my word and I want to learn. Yeah. Right. I want to spend time with God. I want to pray. So, you know, are there times where my alarm goes off, right? And I don't want to get out of that bed.
And you want to cuddle your wife.
And I want to cuddle with you. The weighted blanket's doing what it does, and I'm like all squished into the bed. Like, I don't want to get out at all, but I got to get up. Like, I got to do this. And is that sacrificing my flesh for my marriage? Yeah, you could argue it is, ultimately, right? Like long term, but it's not something that Lisa's like, you have to get up early. And if you don't, then it's going to make me do extra work.
Well, right? I think that's a good point really quick, is that you can't own someone else's self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's like, it's self-sacrifice. And so it's not like you can now get off of this. Let's say you're a wife listening. You're like, well, Brad gave a list of self-sacrificial things that you should be doing.
Have to do. Yeah.
And so like, clearly if you're not doing these things, you're not sacrificing. I mean, just like you said, like training builds confidence, and confidence helps you overcome fear. It's like, okay, well, in training that correlates differently for different people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you and I, and the way that we work out is totally different, and it's not that, and that is developed over time. And when I first started working out too, I was real touchy about any kind of advice that you'd give me.
I still don't give you advice.
Which is like not a good look for me, just FYI. But it's funny because of the fact that for me, it was more of an insecurity that I didn't want that critique. It wasn't even that I didn't, typically I'd welcome, but it's an insecurity, right? Like I wanted you to look at me a certain way. And so it's really more of that kind of an insecurity. But that is the element of knowing, like, we have to own what we have to sacrifice and allow ourselves to be trained in that. So don't just go tell your spouse what they need to do.
No, absolutely not. But as a spouse, husband or wife, like, you should be, what is it that you need to look at that's sacrificing yourself, right? The daily grind, the in
every
and out
day
of what do I need to do to sacrifice to help my wife? Like, if you get home and you're tired and you need to, pitch in for dinner, then pitch in for dinner. Like, whatever it is, I don't know how that looks. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. But you should be looking for ways to sacrifice what you'd rather do. If you're trying to figure out
for ways, that's a big deal.
If you're trying to figure out what does that even mean? It's basically like, if here's a little example. Last night, Lisa's like cleaning up because we have a bunch of family coming in town. And so she's upstairs and like, I'm just chilling downstairs, like we're all showered, like it's the end of the day, just kind of hanging out, dinner's done, all that stuff. And I'm sitting there and I know you're working upstairs. And I was like, and I get up and I go to the kitchen and I'm looking around the kitchen and there's not like a ton of dishes around. It's just kind of little things here and there. And then the dishwasher was full and it was clean. And so I cleaned out the dishwasher, or, put away the dishes, bottom shelf first, work my way up. But anyway, it's another, no, but I did that. And then, cleaned whatever was in the sink and just kind of wiped down the counter, like, made sure it was just clean. So it was something that you didn't have to do. At that point in the day, did I want to do it? Absolutely not. Did not want to do it. And I didn't like make a ton of noise. In fact, a lot of times I try to be quiet because I don't want you knowing I'm doing things, because I don't want I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I do that. Actually, I try to be quiet doing some of those stuff because I don't know if surprise you. I don't know why I don't. But anyway.
Brad's stealthy unloading dishwasher.
I was trying to, and then I dropped some. And I'm like, oh gosh. But I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was tired. It was the end of the day. I was just like hanging out. But so that's it. That's your answer, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to unload the dishwasher, but what is it when you don't want to do something?
Right. You should do it.
And you should just get up and do it to help.
And right? It's crazy to me. And we know, like, through coaching and just like even in all the marriage groups we've been a part of, including the one we currently are in, right, is how much people do like a comparison on their level of sacrifice and are unwilling to do it unless they feel like there is an equal sacrifice on the part of their partner.
Yeah.
Like I'll sacrifice if you sacrifice.
It's so crazy because then you go back to your vow, right? You took a vow, you took an oath, you had this zeal, you had this desire, this urgency, the willingness. And not anywhere in any vow does it say, if you do the same thing, right? Yeah. If you sacrifice, I will sacrifice. Like it doesn't say
if you do better,
things.
I'll do better.
Yeah. It doesn't say those things. And nor would you ever say it outright.
Right.
What happens is you're in your marriage and you're like, oh, well, I've done all these things and she hasn't done anything.
I mean, we were laughing so hard at this, such a simple example, but about half the group that we were recently in, and if they're listening, they're going to laugh that I'm using this example, but half of them were talking about how if they took out the trash, they expected their spouse to put the new trash bag in. Because it was like, I did this part, and now you finish this part.
You know who would love that? My boys.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because we're like, you do the job, you do it well, you finish the job. Like it doesn't matter. Like you finish the job. But it goes to a heart issue, right? Yeah, where it's like why? You do your part. You go above and beyond. Like I want to do these things. Like I want to finish these things.
The example for the boys, like if one of my boys comes back in, sometimes I will have already put the bag in and put everything away. And when they see that, they're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Because they weren't expecting that, you know? And it wasn't it was like, no, my job's to take out the trash. I take the trash out and then I finish it, right? Mm-hmm. Finishing it means you put the bag back in. I know it's I wasn't there that night. I don't know where I was, but I thought that was so interesting when you said that to me. Because to me, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
This is a huge issue. That's what people need to understand. Like this is predominant in marriages.
Yeah.
If you, I will.
Yeah,
I will if you.
And see, that's why there's so many problems in a marriage. I mean, there's a lot more than that, but that's like a core example because what did I say at the beginning? Sacrifice, like you could be the kindest person in the world. You can, be, spiritually, physically, emotionally intimate, like, all these things that you want to do. But if you're not sacrificing anything, then to me, it is like the scripture. It's just clanging noise. Mm-hmm. There's really nothing behind it. It's just there's emptiness with it. Yeah. But then at a certain point, if there's no sacrifice under it, guess what? You ain't going to be that kind anymore. Mm. You're not going to be that intimate anymore. You're not going to hold really what's sacred.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't in a time before, pre me messing up to after, post me messing up that I ever expected a quid pro quo. Mm-hmm. Like never. Like I did the lawn. Like I expect you to do this now. Like there was never anything like that.
Yeah, no, you need to look at your marriage as that training ground of you becoming more Christ-like.
Absolutely.
And so, we talked a lot about at the event, like you have to own your part of the kiss.
Yeah.
Right? Like this element of covenant that you operate in, right? Which says, I will, even if you don't, right? And that doesn't mean that spouses don't need to change. You don't have to have the difficult, like all that stuff, but you need to own your part of it because if you are a Christ follower, which we encourage you, if you're not, man, go to Jesus.
Yeah.
But if you're a Christ follower, you want to start living a life that reflects him more and more, meaning that you yourself individually should start denying yourself, taking up that cross, right, daily, being in the training ground. And your marriage is an opportunity to be in training because inherently we are selfish.
Yeah.
And God calls us to sacrifice.
Yep.
So I think that would be the challenge for the week is just to own your part of this.
Yeah.
And you said, like, look around. Where do you need to sacrifice more? Like, instead of saying, like, I will if you will.
Yeah.
I will even if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, all right. See you next week.